This is our Fitness Fridays, and I'm joined with Cass. I am Deandra from Cancer Free Haven, and I met Cass a little ways back. We both found out that we were stage 3 breast cancer survivors and both had lymph nodes removed during our surgeries. So lymphedema is a big deal and a concern for both of us. And so I want to talk a little bit about our stories, our cancer journeys, and then how we have addressed prevention, symptom management, and then seeking advice on living with lymphedema and how you manage that as well. Cass, if you could get us started off on your cancer journey and where lymphedema comes into play there for you.
Yeah, of course. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer in March 2023. I did chemo, and then in my surgery, we took 14 lymph nodes out. I was non-responsive to chemo, so before I started, I had cancer in 6 lymph nodes, and when I ended chemo, there was still cancer in 6 of them. So really grateful that I got them taken out, and that of all the 14, they weren't all positive. That was also good news. So once that happened, the way my surgeon explained it to me is lymph nodes act like holes in a drain, right? And so the more you remove, the more likely the lymph or the water gets clogged in that area. So I removed 14 little holes in the drain. I didn't have any issues at first. I wore my compression sleeve because they tell you to do that, and no swelling. I thought I was in the clear for sure. And then 2 weeks into radiation, I was hanging out with friends, went to a baseball game for my husband's birthday, and I just remember looking at my hand, and it was massive. It looked so swollen. Obviously, I started freaking out, and luckily I was with an oncology nurse, so she was able to talk me down. Yeah, she was the best person to be around for that. But since then, it's been quite a journey. I was diagnosed with lymphedema probably like a couple weeks after that. They like wait a little bit until you're done radiation because sometimes the swelling can go away. But mine was pretty severe that they were confident that it wasn't going to, and it hasn't. So I think I'm month 4 into living this lymphedema life and thriving as much as one can with a compression sleeve on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thanks for letting us all know your story. I'm really glad that you had that nurse friend there that could immediately say, it's okay, don't
Yeah,
freak out. This is
yeah.
very normal, rather than you just seeing, did a bee sting me? What is going on? Do I need to go to the ER right now? Because that can be a concern if you have something that just crops up out of nowhere. Like, what should I do next? For sure.
That's exactly it. And I think so many like myself, when I first thought of lymphedema, I was more worried about the swelling. But now that I have it, I'm more worried about the risk of cellulitis and getting a cut. That to me is way more concerning than just a little bit of swelling. But obviously, when that happened, I wasn't even thinking like that because I was not as educated.
Yeah. Yeah, we learn as we go. I've seen that for sure in my journey. I am actually a 2-time cancer survivor. So lucky me. I won the genetic lottery. Cass and I are both actually genetic mutation carriers.
Yes, we're special. It's our superpower.
Special snowflakes here. And it's interesting because she has ATM, right? And I have FANCM. And so both of these mutations, they're in all of your cells and they impact all of your cells.
Yeah.
So this is great for us.
So lucky.
But what I found out when I got this genetic testing, like in my breast cancer diagnosis, is that it was linked to the thyroid cancer too. So when I had thyroid cancer, I was only 23 and they removed a total of 40 lymph nodes.
That is crazy. So where did they grab them from?
Yeah, so for thyroid cancer, your thyroid is right here. It's a butterfly shaped organ. And you have a ton of lymph nodes through your neck and both sides. When they were doing the surgery, they were going through and just getting the ones that were right next to the thyroid and then going further out. 14 out of the 40 were positive for the thyroid cancer. So this left side only has 2 functioning lymph nodes left now. I'll see them swell up on different occasions, and I've met with my oncologist and my endocrinologist multiple times about this, and they said That's the 2 that are doing the job for the 40 that were removed.
Oh my.
Them swelling is very normal.
Mhm.
My physical therapist, I went to a lymphedema specific clinic. She gave me
Oh.
racquetballs to rub down through these 2 remaining lymph nodes to help move the
Oh.
lymph. And since you can't wear sleeves
On
for
your
something
neck.
around your neck, we use the exercise strips that help to move your muscle back and
Mhm.
forth, but you cut them out and then attach them down. When I went in for my breast cancer surgery, we found that there was at least 1 lymph node positive from my MRI and PET scans. So I knew there was going to be something. And then I had done some neoadjuvant treatment, some treatment before the surgery.
Mhm.
So between one MRI and another MRI, we saw that the first lymph node was still there and that it had a friend. So similar to you, but I was glad that it came up on the imaging because I was told then and there it's going to be a full axillary dissection.
Mm.
So I was able to prepare because I know how many lymph nodes they take can really influence your recovery time.
Oh my, 100%. And that's actually interesting that you mentioned that because I did an MRI after chemo and it showed all of the cancer in my lymph nodes were gone.
Oh, wow.
They were not, but
Yeah.
I guess imaging, like the cells did shrink, but they were still there, the cancer cells. So I remember calling my surgeon and being like, oh, sweet, I don't have to do the axillary lymph node dissection. And they're like, it's up to you. That would be safer because there was cancer in there at one time. Thank goodness I was like, let's just take whatever you need to take. And as soon as they opened me up, they said we could tell immediately that it was still in the lymph nodes because they were quite enlarged. But that just goes to show, as you're saying, with the imaging, it doesn't always pick up on the cancer in your lymph nodes, which is super scary if people are making like the decision just to do the lymph node biopsy and then it comes back positive and they have to go back into surgery.
Yeah.
That seems so unfair to me.
Yeah. So my surgery for my thyroid cancer was 5 hours because they had to
Wow.
cherry pick each one out. And so they would take a couple to the pathologist and they would look under the microscope and say, these are positive, go get more. So they did
No.
that and it really extended the time of my surgery.
Yeah.
And my recovery from physical therapy was a lot harder with that surgery. Then with the axillary lymph node dissection, I had a right mastectomy. So they just carved out this one rectangle and said, we're just going to take whatever's in this.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have to go back and look in the middle of surgery. If you do the lymph node biopsy and they want to test during a surgery, then they have to inject a dye into the tumor and then see where this blue dye will drain to. And any lymph nodes that light up blue are ones they're supposed to take. And then they also will want to check some during the surgery. So it can make a longer surgery for you, although you have the potential to keep more of them.
Yeah.
My recovery time was between 4 to 6 weeks with the full dissection versus I've heard it can be as short as 2 weeks if you just get 1 or 2 lymph nodes out. A very dramatic difference, but I only had 5 out of 11 lymph nodes were positive for breast cancer. So again, like
I
you,
beat you
I
by
was very
one.
happy.
I beat
Only
you by
one.
one. Whenever I talk about the surgery, obviously the double mastectomy was hard, but it was actually the axillary lymph node dissection that was by far the hardest. My arm was stuck like this for weeks. And it was so painful. I always tell people when they talk to me and they're stage 2 and under, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fine. You're not
Yeah.
getting lymph nodes removed. Like, it will be tough, but trust me, you can get through that one. That one's much more manageable, I think.
Yeah, and it really just goes to show how resilient we are. I remember coming out of my first surgery and being like, oh my goodness, I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't move it up to 90 degrees, freaking out. Then when my breast cancer surgery came around and I was like, oh, can't move it, I'm like, oh, been here before. That's fine.
So sad,
Yeah.
but so true.
Yeah. Get to those wall exercises. So do those wall exercises. Do not slack. That is like the best advice I can give is just make sure that whatever your physical therapist and your oncologist is saying to do while you're home, do as much as possible of that. And then you were talking about that cording, the tightness here in your chest. That is absolutely normal. It's called axillary web syndrome. And so what happens is when you take out all the lymph nodes there, your lymph doesn't know where to go. So it's like your body's trying to hang on to everything and it's just tightening up in these different cords. And your physical therapist can help work through those with you. So I was doing a stretch one day like this and had a pop, and I was like, what is that?
Yes, the pop. It feels so good
Yeah.
after though. It's
Yeah, it
relief.
does. It does. But if you have that tightness where you just can't move it, it's probably that webbing that's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
And then I was able to gain almost full range of motion after that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good thing to look out for, to know that it's absolutely normal and that it's almost 100% reversible in
Mhm.
most cases, as long as you keep working with a physical therapist. Since we've gotten our lay of the land here, we'll go ahead and go through some questions. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Cass. What are some effective strategies for lymphedema prevention post-surgery that you did?
Yeah, so I did many things and still got lymphedema. So I think it's almost like luck of the draw, but it doesn't hurt. Again, just with life, I try to do prevention all the time, but it's no guarantee. But what I did is before my surgery, so I had like a month off between chemo and my surgery. So I really worked on building upper body muscle
Okay.
because I guess that reduces your chance of getting lymphedema. So I was jacked going into my surgery. I've never had bigger arms in my life. It was hilarious. I did that. I booked the physiotherapist before I even had the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the day that I should get my drains off, I was in there, I think the next day, which was a major help. I had axillary web syndrome, and I would have not have been able to get through that without the physiotherapist. I also drink a lot of water because I know there is connections between lymphedema and dehydration. And once I got out of my surgery, as much as I could, I was moving my arm. You
Mm-hmm.
want to not move when you get out of
Yeah.
that surgery because you're in so much pain and you're scared. And it feels weird the first time you're moving without boobs since you were like
Mm-hmm.
11 does feel
Yeah.
weird, right?
Yeah.
To push against that and really move your arm the second you wake up. I heard that's really important, so I did that as well.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, great. So I'll add a few tips that I had on top of this. So for me, I did the physical therapist actually before the surgery.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And yeah, so what we did is we measured my baseline. There's a couple different points on your arm that your physical therapist can measure going into it to say this is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have time to meet with them beforehand, it's okay. They can usually use your other arm as a reference point.
Okay.
But then we had that baseline. So it was a goal that we could tell, okay, at these certain points, I'm having a little bit of swelling. But then as we progressed throughout the physical therapy, it was really strange because my right side got smaller than my left side. And I
Oh,
chalked that up to the left side is where I had the thyroid cancer.
that's what I was
So
thinking. That makes
maybe
sense.
there was a slight bit there
Yeah.
from it, but not enough to be classified as lymphedema.
Yeah.
Another thing that I had for diet recommendations was a low sodium diet. You talk about the extra water consumption, but salt can also help us to retain water.
Mm.
Doing a lower sodium diet, and the recommendation that I got, and I studied nutrition, so I actually will keep that same kind of recommendation now, is about 1,600 milligrams of salt a day. The normal acceptable amount varies between about 2,000 and 2,400, but bringing it back down to that 1,600 really helps you to be able to flush out that extra water.
Mm.
And I think the last thing that I did, which might have been a little bit different, was incorporating yoga into my healing. Over the last couple of weeks, I've actually had a little bit of some swelling happening in my arm, but I realized that this might be a multitude of reasons. Extreme temperature changes. I rolled my ankle and went into urgent care. They took my blood pressure from the wrong arm. I always
Can't
wear
do
my
that.
sleeve,
Mhm.
except for this time. I didn't have my sleeve on, and they did it before I could even say anything.
Dang.
That is like a big one that they
Huge
always
no
tell me,
no.
don't do a blood draw. and don't do blood pressure.
Mhm.
What I noticed is I wasn't really moving as much. I was doing a lot more computer work, a lot less physical activity. So there were multiple reasons why I could have this swelling. But I went and I did just some at-home yoga with my husband, and we were doing sun salutations as you put your arms up in the air and then you go down and you have this full body movement that's up and down. After 15 minutes, I felt this rush of water just go straight down my arm. And it was
Wow.
wild because
Wow.
I had worked out that blockage there,
Wow.
and all the lymph just started flowing immediately. Doing more regular yoga, or if you do have that swelling, maybe you can open up that channel.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really cool. And I haven't been diagnosed with any lymphedema yet. I did let my
Fingers crossed.
oncologist nurse know about it. So it's in my notes that there was some swelling, and then I can come in if I see it going up and swelling more.
Oh, that's awesome that you're so on top of it. And just building off what you said about exercise, yeah, that to me, I think is the biggest trigger for my lymphedema flare ups. I have a notebook where I write down, if I have a flare up, I'll write down what did I eat today?
Okay.
What movement did I do?
Mhm.
And so by doing that, I was able to notice a pattern that salty foods, specifically popcorn, so
Yeah.
bad for my lymphedema, so bad. That and warm showers. So
Mm.
I already can't really do that because of hot flashes anyway, so it wasn't that hard to say goodbye to. And not moving, just like lying down all
Mhm.
day is no longer an option for me if I want to
Mhm.
have a functional hand.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
We have a comment that
You
says
do.
foods are the worst. And with your nutrition degree, I was wondering
Mhm.
if you could expand a little bit more on why that is. It because it dehydrates us?
It dehydrates us, and at the same time it makes us hold on to water more, so you
Okay.
have fluid retention. It can happen in your arms, but also could happen in your legs as well. One of the things that I think scared me into being really on top of lymphedema is I was 23 going into a lymphedema clinic with a lot of older people who had lymphedema for diabetes reasons. The high blood sugar circulating can also cause more fluid retention. It was really scary because I would see women and men wearing these sleeves, but their arms are huge.
Mm.
Like it would be down to here. And I just freaked out a little bit because I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what's going to happen to me. I don't want that to happen at all. But yeah, just managing your sugar consumption. Try to have it earlier in the day
Mm.
because you recover so much faster your blood sugar from a breakfast. And then it gets a little bit
Oh,
longer to recover
yeah.
from lunch and a little bit longer from dinner. Salty foods, I've heard from an oncology nurse, my friend, I asked her, is there any way to compensate for salty foods? And all she said was a diuretic. So something that's going to
Oh,
help you flush it out.
yeah.
Coffee is a diuretic. Beer is a diuretic. I wouldn't really suggest beer as the solution to lymphedema. I have since quit drinking entirely. I think that just trying to limit that consumption or space it out and just hydrate well. I recommend at least 8 glasses a day of water, but I've noticed that sometimes you can go a little bit more than that. Some researchers for inflammation talk about 128 ounces, which is closer to 12 glasses of water. But you
Wow.
do want to balance that with you have an active flare up. You're not going to want to do too much extra, and you're going to want to stay in that balance because extra fluid could just get caught in your arm there, and you wouldn't want that.
Oh, that's so. I love learning this kind of stuff, so thank you for sharing. I
Yep.
like to know the reason behind
Mhm.
things. And also, when you mentioned that you gave up drinking, I'm like, of course she did, because I did too, and we
Oh,
are like kindred spirits. So I'm not
awesome.
surprised to hear that at all. Um, Another topic that would be interesting is, in my experience, the idea of having to wear a compression sleeve was huge on my
Mhm.
confidence at first because you already look so different after cancer, and then like having to, especially this glove, I'm like, I could do the sleeve no problem. It's the
Yeah.
gloves that I can't hide it. So I was wondering if you did anything that kind of helped you get over that mental aspect.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first sleeve that I got, I had ordered it from my physical therapist, said, here's the website. They're the cheapest brand that you can get, and it's fully covered if you send in your paperwork to insurance. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And I got it, and it was a tan colored one. It didn't match my skin tone.
They
It was
never do.
awful. It was just hard and so uncomfortable, and I just did not have any confidence at all. And during my cancer journey, in the middle of my radiation, so I went from surgery, had a couple weeks off like you, went into radiation for 30 rounds. I had my younger brother's wedding, and I was just like, what am I going to do? I have one less breast and I
Oh,
have to wear this
yeah,
sleeve.
yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? So I got like your the flowered one.
Exact same as mine. Yeah.
Almost, yeah. So this is the from the
Okay.
Lymphedivas. I love their brand. But yeah, so I got that one and I picked it out specifically with the dress that I was going to wear because of course I'm a bridesmaid and I have to stand up there in front of everyone with hot
And
flashes, radiation here. So I found a nice dress that if you look for more conservative dresses, they had this really nice like mesh high neck and then it didn't scoop down too far so I could wear my bra, and I didn't even have a prosthetic then, so I was wearing the handful bras. So
oh my
thanks to
goodness.
handful for making me feel normal. They have extra pads that you can put in one side. I even went to my future sister-in-law and said, I'm gonna wear this sleeve, like, is this okay to wear in your wedding? Like, I feel
Yeah.
bad, but I can't really go without it.
Yeah.
And she was so sweet. She was like, oh, I love the pattern. And she had us take some pictures showing off the sleeve because she was like, oh, that's really cool.
Oh,
And so I think that really helped me to get over it very
yeah.
early on because I was not really seeing people. I was just at home and recovering at the time.
Mhm.
So to be at a big event and to have someone be like, oh, that's beautiful and I love it. I think if you can afford getting at least one or two of those lymphedema sleeves that have fun colors or patterns, that will help to boost your confidence entirely.
That is such a good tip. And my brother's getting married in a few months, and I'm going through the exact same
Okay.
thing. So I love that you shared
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's so true. Going to find like cute compression sleeves, it makes it almost like a little fun. Oh, I look like I have like tattoos. Let's dress up this outfit because of that.
Yeah.
But I think we have a
Yeah.
few questions. One of them was asking lighter weights versus heavier when starting to work out with lymphedema. Do you have any advice on that?
Initially, after my surgery, I just did a lot of lightweight, more movement. So
Mhm.
I'd be interesting to see if you with lymphedema have a different view on that.
Yeah, so when I first got diagnosed, they give you a list of things to not do. And one of the things was to not carry more than 20 pounds on your affected side.
Okay.
And I think the example was bringing groceries in.
Mhm.
I feel like me, I used to put like 10 grocery bags here. Yeah, so can't do that anymore. But in my experience, I did weightlifting before and after. I don't find weightlifting causes any flare ups for me. I am lifting more than 20 pounds. Obviously, it's 3 reps of 10 and I'm not like there for hours, so I don't know if that would be different, but I personally haven't seen a flare up with that, but I think it could just be different for every person. I also find like I do a lot of push-ups, a lot
Mhm.
of body weight on my hands, handstands and stuff
Okay.
like that. And yeah, no issues. I actually find working out is like the best thing I can do for my arm. But again, my lymphedema is also in my hand. And so
Mhm.
it's hard to give an answer for everyone. It's so different. But I would say you can track it. Like maybe start light and then you'll see if you get to a certain weight and you're like, ooh, I'm noticing a bit of swelling because of that, then just go down. That's would be
Okay.
my advice.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Yeah, I haven't had anything in my hand, so I haven't had to order the gloves. Although I did see some redness the other day. It was weird. So I took a picture of it and I'm like, well, if that occurs again, it might have been that my sleeve was a little bit too tight. Yeah, I did want to mention about the
Mm-hmm.
sleeves that they recommend to replace them after about 6 months of use and wash them in a washing machine. So our instinct is it's delicate, wash it in the sink. but actually it will retain the shape better because it kind of bows out from your elbow if you try to hand wash it. So the brands for the sleeve, if you're in the States, is the Lymphedivas. Where did you
They
get
ship
yours from? Okay.
Lymphedema ships to
Okay.
Canada. However, I just do you have you heard of Juzo? Juzo?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Maybe that's Canadian, but the government covers, I think, 12 compression garments either a year or every 2 years.
Mhm.
So I ordered it through a middleman with the government. But I
Oh,
have looked at I've seen the Lymphedema website and it looks so cool. I really want to get something.
yeah. Great. Yeah. Looking at the other things I had of recommendations, wearing sleeves while you're flying. I was
So
told
important.
forever for the
Yeah,
rest of your
so
life
important.
that,
So important.
yeah, it's just the altitude changing can cause weird things to happen in your arm. So
Hmm.
always wear those. I actually like to stash my sleeves around. So if I'm not having any issues, I'll wear it just for physical activity.
Hmm.
So yoga, working out, and I'll take it off for the rest of the day. But then I'll leave like one in the car, one in my backpack, one in my purse, just in different places so that if I have a flare up somewhere and I need one, then I have them there. Especially if
Yeah.
you're getting that 12 covered by insurance, that's awesome.
Hmm.
You definitely have more that you can just squirrel away. And I know that you recently were talking about getting sleeves specifically for sleeping. Is there
Oh,
any
yeah.
difference in the sleeve? Do you know how they're different in
So
comparison to regular ones?
I have one here. It is very different and very intense, and mine has dog hair all over it because I have a Dalmatian. But this is what I have to sleep in every
Oh,
night.
wow.
This is how
Okay.
you keep the spark alive in a marriage. Is
Nice.
this compression sleep? Yeah, honestly, I have found a huge difference though. I get a lot of hot flushes at night, so that's the hardest part about keeping it on, but it's fairly comfortable as long as you can get over the sweating aspect. But yeah, I found a huge difference because I used to wake up and my hand would be swollen no
Mm,
matter what
okay.
position I slept in, but now I wake up and it's good, which is
Oh,
awesome.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question about showering with them or in the swimming pool.
Yeah, I've talked to a few other people with lymphedema, and they're like, the only time I take it off is in the shower. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to let your skin breathe too.
mhm.
And then I try to, now that I've been wearing the sleeves again more, to moisturize in between when you put your sleeve back on because it can get irritated. And like you were saying, that risk of cellulite or even infection. So you
Mhm.
want to be really gentle with your skin. I don't know that we specifically did mention this yet, but to get your measurements from the physical therapist is the most important because if you're wearing a sleeve that's the wrong size, then it can be too constricting and it
Yeah,
can be more harm than good for your arm.
absolutely. And I think building off taking care of your skin in between changing
Mhm.
them, that's so important because that is the biggest risk with lymphedema. But you should try very hard to not get any injuries or any cuts because that's cellulitis is much more serious than pooling lymph. And yeah, I was not great at that, but now I'm learning to be better.
Yeah. Another part of prevention that I actually learned when I had my thyroid cancer 12 years ago now was the importance of shoulder exercises, chest flies, and working this back section here because I noticed with my breast cancer that I had a lot of numbness in my arm originally from the surgery, cutting all
Yeah.
the nerves. But then also, I would randomly get this tingling back there and it felt full. Adding in those fly workouts can actually help to stimulate the flow of the lymph and help it to go down your side because there still will be some channel left. It will make a new channel, but if you don't use those back muscles, then you could also get swelling on the side or underneath.
That is such great advice because I have no feeling back there, and maybe that is why. I'm gonna actually, I will start doing that probably tomorrow at the gym. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I actually, with this swelling that I had recently, that was a part of it, and I couldn't sleep much, and I was just wondering, what is this? And then I went downstairs the next day and I did those, and I'm like, Yep, sure enough, it's gone. The other part of that is bras. I still have one boob. They can be too constricting.
Mm.
So if you have swelling for a period of time, just taking off the bra and letting it just be natural for a while can help the lymph to flow. Or like going a size up or wearing like a workout bra rather than a more rigid bra, things like that. But you just don't want it to be like cutting in because that can really cause a pulling. I just got new handful bras and I went up a size and I put it on. I'm like, this is much better because the other one
Wow.
I was wearing was just not the right size for me
Hmm.
anymore, thanks to menopause. Yeah, so I think that's good advice, good tip there is make sure even just switching to a tank top for while you're trying to get that under control. I've noticed that that's worth it, especially when it's cold out. No one can tell that you're not wearing anything else.
Yeah, especially for women, we don't have nipples anymore, most of us, so we don't
Yeah.
gotta worry about that at
Uh-huh.
all. That's actually like I wouldn't have thought of that. So that's I know they say avoid tight clothes, but that makes sense. Bras can be
Mhm.
tight. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Next week, we're going to work on a different part of physical activity, overcoming barriers to exercise.
Ooh, that
So,
sounds
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think in our cancer journey, is that going to be a really difficult thing? I know Cass mentioned recently her blood counts were low. It was really hard. There was a lot of fatigue. And how do you get out of that fatigue and just get up and do that exercise so that we can keep our lymph flowing, stay in good shape, and hopefully keep our bodies in an environment where cancer can't thrive?
Mm.
So you can join us next week and we'll talk about that. And I hope that you stay strong, stay inspired, and remember that we're in this together.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for joining us today.
Take care.